I pulled the trigger on Mark's life the night he confessed. But it wasn't with a bullet. It was with the truth I'd buried for 7 years. The kind that shatters foundations like a sledgehammer to drywall. "You think this ends with your tears?" I whispered, my voice steady as the .38 in my hand, its barrel kissing his temple like a lover's goodbye. In that split second, as his eyes widened with the terror of a man who'd always played God, I realized I'd been the fool all along, worshipping at the altar of his lies while he sacrificed me to save his soul. It started in the Rust Belt corpse of Detroit, where dreams go to die under the weight of unpaid bills and broken taillights. I was 22 when I met Mark Harlan, fresh out of community college with a nursing degree clutched like a rosary, praying it'd pull me from the trailer park my mama called home. He was the golden boy from the suburbs, a junior exec at Ford with a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos and hands that promised forever. We met at a dive bar off 8 Mile. Him nursing a Bud Light after a long day dodging layoffs. Me slinging shots to pay for scrubs that smelled like bleach and regret. "You're too good for this place, Nat," he said, his voice all velvet and Midwestern drawl, sliding a 20 across the bar like it was a marriage proposal. I believed him because I had to, because in a city where half the blocks were boarded up and the other half were burning slow, hope was just another 4-letter word for hustle. We married fast, Vegas style, on a whim after he got a promotion and I aced my boards. The Elvis impersonator who tied the knot probably saw 1,000 like us, young, broke, and betting the house on each other. But Mark, he was different. Or so I told myself. He had plans, climb the ladder at Ford, buy a split level in Grosse Pointe, give our kids the white picket fence that'd keep out the ghosts of Motown's glory days. I was the anchor, the one who nodded through his rants about union busts and corporate sharks, who worked doubles at Henry Ford Hospital to cover the mortgage when his bonuses dried up. "You're my rock, babe," he'd say, pulling me close after a 12-hour shift, his breath warm with whiskey and want. And God, I wanted to be that for him. Mama raised me on Oprah reruns and church potlucks, drilling into me that a woman's strength was in bending, not breaking, in putting his dreams before mine, his peace before my pride. "Men are like oaks, Natalie," she'd say, her voice cracking over her third menthol. "You gotta weather their storms without snapping a branch." The first crack came subtle, like frost creeping into a windshield. Mark started staying late, blaming overtime on the plant's pivot to EVs, electric dreams for a city hooked on gas-guzzling muscle. I'd wait up in our cramped bungalow on the east side, the kind with aluminum siding that pinged like gunfire in the wind, scrolling Zillow for houses we'd never afford. Then the calls, anonymous numbers lighting up his phone, texts he'd delete mid-swipe. "Clients," he'd mutter, but his eyes would dart like a cornered fox. I confronted him once, after finding a hotel receipt crumpled in his work boot, Hilton, downtown, the kind of place with valet and no questions. "It's nothing, Nat. Just a team-building thing." His hand on my cheek, thumb tracing my jaw like I was fragile china. I swallowed it whole, because that's what good wives do. Or so I thought. By year 3, the lies had roots. I got pregnant, twins, a boy and girl. Miracles in a world where fertility clinics charge what we made in a month. Mark wept when I told him, right there in the ER break room, his arms wrapping me like he'd never let go. But the joy curdled quick. The plant laid off half his crew, and suddenly he was consulting on the side freelance gigs that paid in cash and kept him out till dawn. Our savings vanished into a black hole of investments, Some crypto scam he swore was the next Bitcoin. I pieced it together slow, like stitching a wound that wouldn't close. The late nights weren't overtime. They were poker dens in abandoned warehouses off Gresham. High-stakes games where auto execs bet company secrets and small-timers like us bet their souls. The night it all splintered. I came home early from a graveyard shift, my Crocs squeaking on the linoleum, the twins' nursery monitor crackling static in my pocket. Mark was in the kitchen, back to me, hunched over the sink like a man confessing to a priest. Papers scattered the counter, bank statements, foreclosure notices, and worse, emails from a woman named Carla, his partner in the scheme. They'd been skimming from Ford's vendor accounts, funneling kickbacks through shell companies. Hundreds of thousands, enough to drown us. But the kicker? The audit trail led straight to me. Forged signatures on my name, my social stitched into the fraud like a noose tailored to fit. "You bitch," I whispered, the word foreign on my tongue, tasting like rust. He spun, face ashen, the color of Michigan snow turned slush. "Nat, listen, it's not what you think," but it was. He'd used my nursing credentials to consult on fake health benefits for the vendors, making it look like I'd signed off on the whole rotten tree. "I was protecting us," he sobbed, dropping to his knees, clutching my scrub pants like a lifeline. "The plant's closing, babe. We needed the money for the babies. For our future." Lies layered on lies. But the deepest cut was the why. Carla wasn't just a mark, she was his half-sister. The family's secret he'd buried under layers of charm. Daddy's indiscretion from his wild days in the 80s. A love child he'd paid off to stay quiet. Mark had found her 5 years back. Reconnected. And together they'd cooked up the scam to even the score with the old man who'd cut them both out of the will. I should have run then. Packed the diaper bag and the ultrasound pics, and fled to Mama's. But I didn't. Because that's what I'd been taught. Fix it. Forgive it. Frame it as love. I took the fall. Pleaded guilty to accessory fraud in a plea deal that shaved years off but branded me a felon. Mark walked, testifying against me with crocodile tears. The DA calling him a hero whistleblower. The judge, a grizzled Detroiter with a gavel like a judge's hammer, sentenced me to 3 years probation, community service, and a lifetime ban from healthcare. The twins came early, colicky and clawing, while I scrubbed floors at a nonprofit to keep CPS at bay. Mark, he got a slap on the wrist and a promotion, spinning the scandal into a TEDx talk on corporate ethics. "My wife's mistake taught me resilience," he'd say on podcasts, his voice all polished Ted gravel, while I rocked our daughter through nightmares that mirrored my own. Prison wasn't the bars. It was the quiet rot after. Released early for good behavior, I clawed back a life in the shadows, waitressing at a Coney Island knockoff, living in a one-bedroom with the kids and a tabby named Judas. Mark visited Sundays, all performative dad in his pressed khakis, slipping me envelopes of support that smelled like his cologne and contempt. For the family, he'd say, kissing my forehead like I was still his. But the betrayal festered, a gangrenous limb I couldn't amputate. Therapy? A joke for white-collar shrinks in Ann Arbor. No. My unraveling was DIY, late-night Google dives into white-hat hacking, forums where ex-cons traded tips on digital skeletons. I learned code like scripture, piecing together the threads he'd left dangling. The hook sank deeper when I found the second secret. Buried in a cloud drive he'd forgotten to nuke, accessible via his birthday password. Because irony's a cruel bastard, was footage. Not just of the scam, but of him. Mark, high on Adderall and adrenaline, cornering Carla in that same Hilton room, his hands around her throat, not in play, but in rage. You think you can cut me out? After I saved your ass from Dad's lawyers. The video cut off at her gasp, but the timestamps matched the night before our plea hearing. She'd threatened to flip, expose him fully, and he'd. What? Silenced her? No body. No headlines. But her LinkedIn went dark 6 months ago. Last post a cryptic, sometimes family is the real forgery. Rage isn't a fire, it's a flood. Slow and submerging. I planned in whispers, over lukewarm coffee at 3 a.m., while the twins dreamed of normalcy I'd stolen. Mark's flipping started small, anonymous tips to his boss. Doctored emails surfacing concerns about his ethics. He blamed rivals. Paranoia creeping into his voicemails. Nat, if you hear anything, tell me. We're in this together. Together. The word curdled my stomach like spoiled milk. I escalated, drained his crypto wallet. A cool 50 grand funneled to a burner account for the kids' college. He howled to our lawyer. But I was ghosts untraceable. The felon who'd learned to haunt. The tension coiled like a watch spring in my chest, ticking toward detonation. Detroit summers are hell sauna. Humidity clinging like regret. And that July, it broke. Mark called, voice frayed as fishing line. Meet me at the old plant. Midnight. We need to talk about us. The kids. Us. As if. I drove the hour through pothole minefields, my old Civic wheezing like an asthmatic. The .38 from his nightstand tucked in my glove box, a gift from his poker buddies. Now my equalizer. The plant loomed on the riverfront, a skeletal cathedral of rust and regret. Chain-link fences, sagging under weeds. He was there, silhouetted against the Detroit River's oily gleam, cigarette glowing like a false halo. Natalie, he started, arms open like a prodigal son. But I saw the trap, his phone angled just so. Recording app running. Bait for another frame job. I know what you've been doing. The hacks. The money. But I forgive you. We can start over. His eyes, those liar's lakes, shimmered with rehearsal. Forgive me? The audacity hit like a sucker punch. Start over, I echoed, stepping closer. The gun heavy in my waistband. Like when you started forging my name, or when you choked Carla to keep your throne. His face crumpled, then hardened, the flip, swift as a dealer palming an ace. She was gonna ruin everything. For us. Nat, for the twins. Us again. The sacred cow he milked dry. I pulled a .38, not to shoot but to show, cold steel mirroring the river's chill. Everything? You mean your empire of lies? I took the fall. Mark. I lost my license, my dignity, while you played saint. He lunged then, not for the gun, but for me, hands grasping, pleading, I love you, babe. Always have. Love. The word we'd twisted into knots. That's when the hook lines tore free. I fired once, low, into his knee, the crack echoing off the silos like Judgment Day. He crumpled, howling, blood blooming dark on his chinos. But not fatal, not final. Just pain. The kind he'd doled out in installments. Why, he gasped, clutching the wound, eyes wild with the shock of consequence. Because you taught me to bleed for you, I said. voice steady as the river's current. Now it's your turn to learn what it costs. But as sirens wailed distant, his phone's SOS. The coward's final play, I knelt beside him. The gun loose in my lap. The twist hit me then, sharper than the recoil. In his pocket, spilling out with the wallet. A crumpled ultrasound. Not mine. His and Carla's, a secret pregnancy. Dated months before she vanished. He'd killed for it, or saved it. The math blurred. If she'd flipped, the baby would have been leverage, not loss. My hand trembled on the barrel. Was this revenge? Or just another layer of his game? I could have ended it 2 pulls. Mercy for us both. Instead, I stood, leaving him to the blues, walking into the night with the weight of what-ifs. The cops came soft. A plea bargain in the air before the cuffs clicked. Mark survived. Spun the shooting as self-defense gone wrong, but the footage I'd anonymously leaked to the DA, Carla's last gasp, flipped the script. He confessed. Partial. Enough for manslaughter and fraud stacked high. 20 years. Minimum. The twins? They stayed with me. Mama's trailer upgraded to a duplex with the recovered funds. Freedom tasted like diner coffee, bitter. But mine. Yet in quiet moments, rocking my son through fevers, I wonder, did I undo the chains? Or forge new ones? Mark's letters come weekly. All contrition, and I did it for love. Love. The debate rages in my head, splitting me down the middle. No heroes. Just survivors clawing from the muck. Was I avenger or abuser? The city doesn't judge. It just keeps grinding. Tires on asphalt. Hearts on sleeves. And me? I'm learning to put my feelings first. One jagged breath at a time. But freedom's a double-edged blade, and some cuts never fully heal. The fallout wasn't fireworks, it was fallout, ash settling slow, coating everything in gray ambiguity. Court dates blurred into a carousel of suits and subpoenas. The Wayne County Courthouse a beige purgatory where truths twisted like pretzels. Mark's lawyers painted me as the scorned harpy, the felon with a grudge, waving psych evals like red flags at a bull. MS. Harlan's actions stem from untreated resentment. His lead shark droned. A Botox blonde from Birmingham with pearls the size of my regrets. But I had my ace, the cloud drive, decrypted and donated to the feds via a Tor relay, anonymous as a ghost in the machine. Carla's video played in closed session. Her gasps the soundtrack to his unraveling. The DA, a bulldog named Ruiz with a mustache like a 70s cop show, leaned in after. You did good, Natalie. But shooting him? That's a line you crossed. Crossed. As if his lies hadn't drawn the map. Publicly, it was a circus. Detroit Free Press splashed, Auto ex-wife turns gun on betrayer hubby, the byline dripping tabloid sleaze. Social media ignited, Natalie's revenge trending on X. Half the feeds hailing me as a feminist folk hero, the other half crucifying me as a trigger-happy thought. She shot the father of her kids. Over money? Lock her up, one blue-check troll barked. His profile pic a bald eagle filter. Mama scrolled it all from her lazy boy, muttering, "Folks got no sense. Nat. Like that OJ. Mess. Everybody picks a team." She was right. The city cleaved. Motown's divides laid bare. Black barbershops on the east side buzzed with good for her, men like that deserved the boot, while white wine moms in Ferndale clucked about toxic femininity run amok. I became the Rorschach test for America's marriage malaise. Was I liberator or a lunatic? The kids felt it seismic. Ellie, my Spitfire girl with Mark's dimples, Started acting out fistfights at recess. Drawings of stick-figure families with guns for arms. Did Daddy make you mad? Mommy, she'd ask, crayon clutched like a shank, her 4-year-old eyes too old for innocence. Tommy, the quiet one, withdrew into Legos and Minecraft, building fortresses against the questions he couldn't voice. I enrolled them in counseling at a sliding-scale clinic off Livernois. The therapist, a soft-spoken Somali woman named Amina, who saw through my armor. You carried his sins, Natalie. Now carry your own healing. Healing. The word mocked me during visitations. Those sterile rooms at Macomb Correctional, where Mark hobbled in on crutches. His knee a perpetual grudge. The kids need their dad, he'd wheeze. Ellie perched wary on his lap. I'd nod, throat tight. Because even monsters have moments, reading Goodnight Moon with a tremor in his voice, promising puzzles he'd never solve. But the flips kept coming, his moxie uncrushed. Midway through his stint, a letter arrived. Not contrite but cunning. Carla's alive. Nat. Hiding in Toronto with our boy, your nephew. I sent her away to protect him from the fallout. You shot me for nothing. Nothing. The paper shook in my grip, ink blurring under tears that weren't salt but acid. I hired a PI, a grizzled ex-cop named Vic with a flask hip and a nose for bullshit. 2 weeks, $5,000 from the crypto pot. And bingo, Carla Harlan, née Whitaker, shacked up in a Kensington Market walk-up, toddler in tow. Her LinkedIn resurrected as a consultant for Canadian auto suppliers. Alive. The secret he'd weaponized. The pregnancy a ploy to flip the narrative, make me the villain who fired on a phantom. Rage 2.0 hit different. Not flood, but fever, burning rational to cinders. I drove north, the border a blur of rain and regret, my Civic hugging the QW like a lifeline. Toronto gleamed alien, CN Tower piercing clouds like a middle finger to my grit. Streetcars clanging with polite urgency. I found her in a Tim Hortons, nursing a double-double. The boy, Mark Jr., or MJ as she cooed, gumming a Timbits with chocolate-smeared glee. She looked up, recognition dawning slow, then sharp as shattered glass. Natalie? What the hell? No fear. Just fatigue. The kind etched from years of Harlan men. We talked for hours, the coffee cooling as confession steamed. Carla wasn't victim or villain. She was mirror to me, burned by the same fire. Daddy's discard who'd clawed for scraps. Mark had recruited her not for blood, but for brains. Her accounting chops from Wayne State, funneled into the fraud. The chokehold? A bluff gone bad. Her threat to bail sparking his panic. He never meant to hurt me, she said, voice flat as the prairies. But you? He used you like a shield. Said you were soft, easy to mold. Soft. The word I'd worn like a hair shirt. I showed her the video, watched her flinch, not at the grip, but the truth. I left because of the baby. Couldn't raise him in that poison. MJ gurgled, oblivious, his eyes a Harlan hazel that twisted my gut. The drive back was delirium, border guards eyeing my red-rimmed stare like contraband. Mark's letter was half lie, half hook. He'd known she was safe. Dangled the death to bait my mercy plea. I could have exposed it, dragged her into the circus, but I didn't. Instead, I flipped, sent her the remaining crypto, $20,000 for MJ's Montessori. Anonymous wire from a Cayman drop. For the family, I typed in a memo, echoing his ghost. It wasn't absolution, it was amputation, severing the ties that bound me to his rot. Back in the D, the tension peaked in autumn's bite, leaves turning blood orange like warning flares. Ruiz called. Harlan's cutting a deal, naming names up the Ford chain. Your shooting's the leverage. He'll spin it as coercion. Coercion. My knee-jerk became his get-out-of-jail-free. I stormed the DA's office. A brick bunker off Jefferson, pounding the receptionist's desk till my knuckles split. You let him walk. After everything? Ruiz met me in a conference room smelling of stale donuts. His mustache twitching sympathy. It's politics.
Nat.
Big Auto owns this town.
But you?
We can charge him accessory to your emotional distress. Battery via betrayal. Battery. The law's cold calculus for a heart flayed open. I took it. The deposition a high-wire act, recounting the gaslighting. The fall. The shot. Voice cracking only once when I named the twins. Mark's flip was masterful, testifying remote. His crutches propped like props. Tears on cue. She manipulated me. Your honor. The stress of fatherhood. Fatherhood. The gallery murmured. The judge, a woman this time. Steel gray bun and no-nonsense specs, leaning in skeptical. The climax crested that afternoon. Cross-exam. Carla subpoenaed via back channels, materializing in a wool coat and heels that clicked like countdowns. Tell them, I urged in the hall. Her hand cold on mine. She did, spilling the scam's veins. Mark's choke as passion's edge, the baby's flight as self-preservation. The room split. Gasps from the prosecution pews. His lawyers objecting like machine gun fire. But the real twist? Her final line. Delivered flat. Natalie knew. About the fraud. Early on. She signed the first dummy contract, thought it was a loan for the nursery.
Knew.
The word detonated. Jury eyes swiveling to me like spotlights.
Lie?
Or buried truth. Flashes hit. That night in the kitchen. Papers under his elbow. My signature scrawled in haste while he distracted with kisses. For us, he'd murmured. I'd signed. Blind faith my ink. The courtroom blurred. The judge's gavel a guillotine. No one right. No one wrong, just a chain of complicity. Links forged in love's forge. Mark got 10. Reduced for cooperation. I walked. Probation extended. But the verdict hung. Mutual culpability, the judge intoned. Her specs glinting judgment. The press feasted. Harlan heist. Wife's revenge or shared sin? Readers piling on in comments. Forums fracturing into Team Nat versus. Both toxic. Mama hugged me tight that night. Her menthols traded for Merlot. Ain't no clean hands in this family.
Girl.
But you stood up. Stood up. The phrase echoed as I tucked the twins in. Ellie's fist unclenching in sleep. Winter clamped down hard that year. Detroit's lake effect snow-burying sins under drifts that melted messy come spring. The duplex on Chalmers hummed with fragile normalcy. Ellie's ballet recitals at the rec center. Tommy's science fair volcano erupting baking soda triumph. I found work at a home health agency. No license needed for bedpans and banter. The clients grizzled vets who swapped war stories for my sponge baths. You got that fighter's light. Dull, old mister. Kowalski would rasp. His emphysema a rattle like distant thunder. Fighter. The label stuck. A balm on wounds that wept in the dark. Mark's letters evolved, less plea. More poison pen. You stole my son.
Nat.
MJ's mine too.
Stolen.
As if blood bought rights. I burned them in the sink, the flames dancing blue on formica. But the embers lingered. Carla reached out once. A hesitant Venmo thank you for the wire. MJ asks for Aunt Nat. Come visit.
Aunt.
The word warmed, then warned, another Harlan hook, baited with baby blues. I drove up sporadic, border runs turning ritual, Tim Horton stakeouts morphing to park picnics. MJ's giggles a siren song against the skyline. She flips off now, spilling more, Mark's childhood scars. Daddy's belt for disappointments, the will that left her nada but resentment. He was broken before he broke us, she'd say, passing a poutine I'd pretend to love.
Broken.
Empathy's Trojan horse, sneaking past my walls. The tension simmered through thaw, potholes pooling like tear tracks. Ruiz tipped me. Harlan's appealing, claiming spousal abuse. You're shot as the capstone. Abuse. The inversion hit like whiplash. His victimhood of venom I should have seen brewing. I lawyered up pro bono. A firebrand from the Innocence Project named Lena. All braids and bravado. We'll countersue for defamation, turn his narrative to confetti. The hearings dragged. A rematch in the same beige arena. But this time the gallery swelled, supporters in free Nat tees. Hecklers with Justice for Mark signs waving like Confederate flags at a cookout. Controversy crested viral. A podcaster cornered me post-session. Mike thrust like a blade. Was it revenge or righteousness? Empower us. Queen.
Queen.
I laughed bitter. The sound echoing off marble. It's just survival. Honey. In this town, that's the real crime. The climax detonated in a sidebar conference. Mark wheeled in under guard. His knee brace a badge of martyrdom. Lena laid it out, the full drive dump, including his poker vids, him rigging hands, not just playing. Extortion material, she called it, but his eyes locked mine, flipping final. You rigged me too.
Nat.
That first signature? You knew the risks, wanted the thrill.
Thrill.
The courtroom air thickened. Judge calling recess as whispers whipped. Alone in the hall, he leaned close, breath sour with institutional chow. We were partners.
Babe.
In the heist, the hurt. You pulled that trigger to feel alive.
Alive.
The accusation landed true. A mirror cracking under truth's hammer. Had I, the fraud's rush, the power and the payback, had I craved the chaos as much as the cure? The twist unfurled slow. A slow burn fuse to the end. Carla testified last. MJ on her hip like a talisman. Her voice steady. Mark didn't choke me to silence. He did it because I confessed I loved Natalie. Not him.
Us.
Tangled from those East Side parties before the scam. She signed that paper to protect me. Not him.
Loved.
The word hung. A bomb in the docket. Flash. Stolen glances at barbecues. Her hand lingering on mine during the pregnancy scare. Mine. Not hers. I'd buried it deep. The bipolar mama's church would have damned, framing it as sisterly solidarity. But Mark knew, had always known, using the affair to bind us in his web. Threesome gone toxic, his lawyers sneered in closing. But the jury, diverse as Detroit's mosaic, fractured in deliberation. 3 days of deadlock before compromise. His appeal denied. My countersuit settled out of court for a trust fund split 3 ways, me, Carla, the kids. No one won clean. Mark got life for the mounting charges, fraud pyramid collapsing on his crown, his final flip a suicide note smuggled out. You all killed the man I could have been.
Killed.
The ambiguity ached. Readers raging in op-eds. Natalie's queer awakening excuses the shot. Versus. Patriarchy's puppet string snapped. Heroine. I ghosted the noise. Focusing on the free. Co-parenting with Carla across the border. Her Toronto flat a second home where MJ called me Annie Nat Nat. His hugs mending fractures I didn't know bled. The twins warmed slow. Ellie braiding Carla's hair. Tommy building block towers with his cousin. Mama softened too. Trading menthols for yoga at the senior center. Loves a messy quilt.
Girl.
Yours just got more colors.
Ending?
Not tidy bow, but open seam. Some nights. I drive the riverfront. The old plant a dark sentinel. .38 long surrendered, but it's ghost heavy. Freedom's this. Choosing my feelings first. Even when they wore, love for Carla tentative as spring thaw. Loyalty to the twins fierce as rust. Mark rots. But his shadow debates eternal. Was revenge redemption? Or recursion? The city hums indifferent. Motown beats pulsing under snowmelt. Reminding that in America's underbelly, heroes are just the last one standing. And me? I'm standing. Scars and all. Undoing the lessons that nearly drowned me. One breath. One border cross. One unapologetic yes at a time.